the river is one of the main components of an ecosystem. We also know the role of rivers in an ecosystem. A river is a large repository of oxygen molecules that give life. Likewise, our body also has some components that do the same function as that of a river. Is it a cell or tissue? Any ideas? Can you name the river of life? All these questions give the same answer, and that is the blood. In this video, we will learn more about blood and its associated terminologies. All living organisms contain cells that require nutrients and oxygen to produce energy. Cells also produce waste such as urea, uric acid and carbon dioxide. Hence, there should be a continuous supply of nutrients. This process of supply and removal is carried out by simple organisms like sponges by allowing water to flow through their body cavities. It is also carried out by complex organisms like humans through a specialized medium called body fluids that circulate these substances throughout the body. Depending upon the mode of circulation, the circulatory system may be an open or a closed type. First is the open circulatory system. In this type, the blood flows through the parts of the body cavity. It remains mixed with body fluid. Lower organisms like prawns and insects have an open circulatory system. The next category is a closed circulatory system. The peculiarity is that the blood flows in a well-defined tube-like vessels. All vertebrates have an open circulatory system. Let us learn more about blood. How can you define a blood? We can define blood as a connective tissue that consists of plasma, red blood cells, white blood cells and platelets. Now, let's see what plasma is made of. Plasma is a straw-colored viscous fluid that constitutes 55% of the blood volume. Let us now look at the constituents of plasma. Plasma consists of a few liquefied salts and minerals, 90 to 92% of water and 6 to 8% of proteins. So what are the different proteins present in plasma? Fibrinogens, albumins and globulins are the proteins found in plasma. Other than proteins, nutrients, enzymes, metabolites and small amount of mineral ions like sodium, calcium ions and chlorine are also found in plasma. The factors for coagulation or clotting of blood are also present. If the plasma lacks these clotting factors, we will call them as serum. Now, it is time to check the major functions of these proteins. Recall that the clotting factors are present in plasma. Fibrinogens are required for the clotting or the coagulation of blood. The next protein is the albumins. Albumins help in the osmotic balance and the globulins are involved in the defense mechanism of the body. So far we have seen the constituents of plasma. Next are the formed elements. What are these formed elements? Erythrocytes, leukocytes and platelets are collectively called formed elements. These formed elements makes up the 45% of the blood. Let us now check them one by one. Red blood cells are also known as the erythrocytes. Why are they termed as red blood cells? Any idea? Here is the answer. Erythrocytes are known as red blood cells because they have a red colored iron-containing complex protein called hemoglobin. So, from where does this RBC get its origin? These cells are formed in the red marrow in adults. Now let us check the structure of an RBC molecule. These cells are biconcave and these cells do not have nucleus. So, what about the quantity of RBC in a living body? On an average, there are 5 to 5.5 million RBCs per cubic millimeter of blood in a healthy adult. Do these cells have any other functions other than giving color to the blood? Let us check. They have the significant property of transporting respiratory gases to different parts of the body. My next question is, do they have a lifespan? Yes, a single red blood cell has an average lifespan of 120 days. And what happens after? These cells are involuntarily destroyed in the spleen. The spleen is commonly known as the graveyard of RBCs. Next, let us focus on the next component of formed elements. That is the white blood cells. White blood cells or leukocytes lack the hemoglobin pigment and they appear transparent or colorless. Looking into the structure, these cells are nucleated and short-lived. So, do RBCs and WBCs have the same volume in a healthy body? The answer is no. The white blood cells average about 6,000 to 8,000 cells per cubic millimeter of blood. This WBC can be broadly categorized into granulocytes and agranulocytes. First, let us focus more on granulocytes. Granulocytes are the most common type of white blood cells with specific granules. And there are also different types of them seen. They are neutrophils, eosinophils and basophils. Let us study each of them one by one now. Neutrophils are the most abundant white blood cells in our body. And what about its cell structure? As you can see on the screen, the cells have a polymorphic nucleus and they have the phagocytic ability. Recall that the phagocytosis is a recognition and the ingestion of the particles. They comprise 60 to 65% of the total WBCs. Eosinophils are the other granulated cells with kidney-shaped lobed nuclei where 2 to 4 lobes can be seen through a microscope. Let us check some functions of eosinophils. They resist infections and they are also associated with the allergic reactions. Other than this function, they are involved in the destruction of tumor cells and they promote the repair of damaged tissue. The third kind of WBC is the basophils. They are among the least common cells in bone marrow and blood. Looking more into the cell structure, they have 2 lobed nuclei. Their main function is the secretion of inflammatory mediators such as histamines, serotonins and heparin. Another example of granulocytes include mast cells. Let us now study the features of agranulocytes. Lymphocytes and monocytes are the type of agranulocytes in blood. How will you distinguish between a granular and agranular cell? Agranular cells are distinguished from granulocytes by the lack of granules in their cytoplasm. Mainly, there are of 2 forms of lymphocytes and they are B and T lymphocytes. Generally, they are responsible for the immune responses of the body. Lymphocytes are often more prevalent in the lymphatic system of the body. Next, we shall look into another group of cells and they are the platelets. Platelets, also called thrombocytes, are the cell fragments produced from the megakaryocytes. So what is the megakaryocyte? Megakaryocytes are the large cells of the bone marrow that are the production sites for the platelets. The blood contains 1,50,000 to 3,50,000 platelets, millimeter raised to -3. And what is its function? Basically, they release a variety of substances that are involved in the coagulation or the clotting of blood. So, what happens when the platelet count fails? A reduction in their number can lead to the clotting disorders, which will lead to excessive loss of blood from the body. Next is the tissue fluid. These are the fluids observed in the gaps between cells. They serve as the interstitial transport of nutrients and waste. This tissue fluid is also known as the interstitial fluid. How do these fluids are collected and spread across the body? An elaborate network of vessels called the lymphatic system collects this fluid and drains it back to the major veins. How will you define a lymph? We can define lymph as a clear fluid that travels through the lymphatic system and carries cells that help fight infections and other diseases. Lymph has a similar composition, the same mineral composition as that of the blood plasma. From where does lymph derive? It is derived from blood plasma as the fluid passes through the capillary walls at the arterial end. Let us check some more details about lymph. You need to note that the lymph contains specialized lymphocytes which are responsible for the immune response of the body. And another function is that the lymph is also an important carrier of nutrients, hormones, etc. The next function is that the fats are absorbed through the lymph in the lacteals present in the intestinal villi. Is there a classification for blood? Is your blood group the same as that of your friends? Who is a universal donor? Let us find out the answers to these questions in the next video. Now, let us summarize what we have learnt.
Manorama Horizon. Learning made simple.